I am what many may define as a casual MMO player. Okay, hold on. Before you take me to the torch or stone me or whatever it is you want to do because casuals are ruining your gaming experience, allow me to explain. Okay, I guess there really isn't much to explain. I'm a casual. I only play for a few hours a day, if I can get to the game that day. But I didn't always have such limited playtime. I too used to have the whole day to spend playing my games. But even then, I definitely wouldn't have been the person that you would describe as a hardcore MMO player. So, with that being said, let's jump in the time machine and take a trip back to the start of the story. So, the first time I played an MMO was probably RuneScape back in the day. It was free, you could play it on a browser. What else could a kid need? And I have to admit, I really enjoyed it. It was fun getting into the cycle of gathering and crafting and then using the gear that you just crafted to try and fight stronger enemies. But I never dived deep into the game. And that was probably because I wasn't social in games or really social online in general. I came up during a time period where kids were taught to not talk to people on the internet. After all, a stranger online was just as much as a stranger in real life. So I never really got into this social aspect of gaming when I was younger. I just played as much as a kid with no friends who played RuneScape could, before getting bored and eventually moving on to something else. My next experience with MMOs wouldn't be until later. I remember that day. My parents took me to the store. They told me I was allowed to buy a video game. This occasion was rare. I walked through the gaming aisles, ignoring the console games and going straight towards PC gaming. I don't even know what the titles would have been on the shelves back then, but I do remember seeing it in all its glory, shining like a beam of light. The words, with over 1 million active players, proudly presented on the cover. That's right, the reflection of World of Warcraft glinting in my eye. But it was too bright. I covered my eyes and reeled back. Next to it, much more gloomy, but with a much more vibrant color palette, sat City of Heroes. Superheroes? Yeah, give me that shit. I know what you're thinking. What? You didn't get World of Warcraft? No, I didn't get World of Warcraft. I know, what a travesty. But I really did and do like superheroes. Hell, it feels like every few months I remember that game Marvel Heroes is gone, and that I'll never be able to play it again, and I feel sad. Guilty pleasures just can't be explained, man. We like what we like. But don't worry, my experience with City of Heroes was practically non-existent. I was what you would call poor. So, after I waited patiently, so patiently, for all the disks to download the data to my family PC, I got hit with a notification saying that this game required a monthly subscription. I didn't know what that meant. I got my mother. She says it was asking for her credit card information. Credit card? That shit's for food, not for games. So back to the store we went to return the heap of garbage as fast as humanly possible. I know what you're going to say next. Yeah, I bet you couldn't return it because of the store policy and yada yada. While you're not wrong, my father can be rather persuasive. I ended up leaving the store with Halo while this manager left with an earful. Wait, I thought this video was about MMOs, not Halo and Marvel Heroes. Well, I'm getting to it now, damn it. Eventually, I did play WoW, and it was my first proper MMO, RuneScape notwithstanding. As a poor kid, I knew my parents would never buy a subscription, so I had to resort to less than legal ways to experience the genre's biggest thing since sliced bread. Yeah, not good. The server I played on was Neverendless-wow. Shout out to my Neverendless-wow bros and sisters. Unless you were a donator, because donators ruined private servers. At least they ruined my private server, in my experience. Hell, it's not like there was much to ruin in the first place. The game hardly worked. Quests were bugged, rating didn't really work, and the EXP ratios were jacked to high hell. Let's just say that if you only played retail, that you and I had a very different experience. And my experience ended with me trying to do PvP against players with custom-made legendary gear that made them unkillable gods that they paid hundreds of dollars for. Oh, and don't complain about them either, because doing so can get you banned. Because, they're the ones paying the poor guys tasked with keeping the servers up and running. It actually wouldn't be until college that I got to play the real World of Warcraft for the big boys and girls. And boy, the real game was just unexplainable. While I did hold some twisted nostalgia for the Wrath of the Lich King era from my dabble in private servers, I didn't play the game proper until Mists of Pandaria. And there goes the rest of the few people who are watching this video. Bye bye. Sorry the pandas ruined your life. Anyway, Mop sure didn't fail to deliver the promise of retail for me. When the game actually works, it's extremely fun to play. Moving on. Remember though, I'm a casual. So if you expected me to dive into how much fun I had played every aspect of the game, then I'm sorry to disappoint. Back then I watched a lot of Bajira, the really good PvP guy who would make those Fury PvP videos. At least that's how he branded himself back then. I don't really know what he's up to much these days. So pretty much the only thing I did was queue for random battlegrounds once I got to max level. Other than doing some dailies, of course, and trying to farm for mounts and old content and what have you. But my friends weren't really playing the game yet, so I didn't have much of a reason to sink a lot of time into the game. Besides, the way PvP worked back then for casuals was fun enough. Gearing up using your honor points felt fun and satisfying. Probably because it was the first time I was doing it, and there weren't people with unobtainable gear blocking you from having fun. But unfortunately, bots existed, and they were there to keep you from having fun. So eventually I let my sub run dry, and I wouldn't come back until Warlords of Draenor. This time, I was able to convince a longtime friend of mine to join me. The initial days of the expansion were buggy, laggy, we had constant disconnect issues, and we could hardly experience the game. And it was so much damn fun. We learned our lesson. Well, kinda. More on that later. But we knew what to expect from the future, at least. Warlords of Draenor had, for me, the hypest leveling content that I've experienced at any MMO. Coupled with that was the class design, which honestly felt like a final send-off / last goodbye of that class design team. Classes in MOP felt fun, smooth, and overpowered as hell. WoD just tried to dial it back a bit, but overall it still felt freaking great. Unfortunately, the hype didn't last. Killing most of the antagonists on the box felt final in a way. It was like, we did it. We killed like 90% of the warlords. And to be quite honest, we didn't feel like joining a guild and putting in a ton of effort. Yet. Okay, so no, we didn't really go hardcore, at least not how most people would consider. But we did step our game up. When Legion was announced at BlizzCon, the hype was real. Illidan was coming back, Gul'dan was still scheming. We're going to finally face the Burning Legion? I wasn't a slouch when it came to the lore. I found it fascinating, to be honest. It first piqued my interest when I heard all of these "Sour Fang is so badass" memes. The ones that blew his accomplishments out of proportion, making him seem like an unkillable badass. That sparked my love for the orcs. But you can bet your butt I sank a lot of hours into listening to lore videos, diving into wikis, and just learning about the story of Warcraft. So when I saw Illidan, even though I didn't play during the Burning Crusade, I felt the weight of his legacy. Legion would be the beginning of my new relationship with WoW. I still remember the pre-patch for Legion. People talk about the pre-patch events for Wrath of the Lich King and how cool it was. For me, Legion's pre-patch fills that gap. Rushing out into the world to combat the Burning Legion as they invaded our beloved leveling zones just made the game feel so alive. Those events also served to help you level up all characters and get them some gear for when the expansion launched. So the effort didn't feel wasted at all. It was really fun and really memorable. When the expansion finally launched, it was buttery smooth. I don't remember having a single issue, and I played on day one. That's when me and my friends decided that we would get into a guild and raid. We just knew that none of us wanted to do mythic progression. We liked the game, and for us, gaming is supposed to be fun and not strenuous. So we got into a social guild that raided at the heroic level. That was enough for us. but an unexpected turn of events would push us to play more than we anticipated. Soon after completing the Emerald Nightmare, our guild's leadership decided to abandon ship, and by a strange turn of events, my good buddy Andrew ended up becoming the new guild leader. Looking back on it, he did a good job. We salvaged the guild, made our intentions of continuing to raid heroics clear, and he really ran with the leadership. Our friend Spork really stepped up as well, becoming a healer and eventually a tank who took his role pretty seriously. Together, we all ended up playing more, making sure to help manage the guild bank, providing potions and whatnot during raids. We had a lot of fun with it, and the friendships we made with our guildmates continue to this day, even though we don't all play as much or even at all anymore. So we rated all of the content in Legion to success. We had tons of fun, and we got to experience a full expansion and make our own memories of it. It wouldn't last though. You can pretty much pick your reason from the long list of why Battle for Azeroth was bad, for why I didn't continue playing, at least from a gameplay perspective. It's possible I was just in too deep. I spent a lot of time thinking about how my classes and specs could play better, and eventually it just turned me off, knowing that none of my ideas would ever be realized. If I wasn't in so deep, maybe I would have just enjoyed it for what it was. But I don't regret anything. As I sink back more into being a casual, I'll play progressively less and less until not at all. Ultimately, the game just wasn't for me. During BFA, I started a family and had my first son, so my playtime was very reduced. Playing for only about 2 hours a day just wasn't satisfying. So when Shadowlands launched and the same unsatisfying feeling was still there, I just stopped playing altogether. As a joke, more or less, I would later download Final Fantasy XIV. Boy oh boy was it different. The UI, the way the game felt, the art direction, it's obvious, but the game was just different. And to be honest, I wasn't anywhere near the mindset needed to play it. Just as an example, I like to play the larger races in RPGs that let you pick one. So I picked a Rogadin and harnessed all of my creative might. 2 decades of being a right-brained individual, all of my art and all of my comedic insight, and named him Big Boy. Yeah, comedy gold, I know. That's just proof that I wasn't really ready for Final Fantasy XIV. I played a Marauder, and I was very upset that the Big Axe job was a tank and not a DPS. And after playing for 30 minutes and not even getting into a fight because I was used to picking up every quest you see, I just stopped playing. I wouldn't play until much later. For a while, I dabbled in Guild Wars 2, playing with some college buddies, but after reaching max level and having practically no PvE content, I didn't keep playing. I played some Star Wars The Old Republic, though not for long. I didn't stop because I didn't like it or anything. I just think there was other games that I felt like playing at the time. I may actually go back and play it because I liked what I saw. But enough beating around the bush. There's no way I can actually give up on the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV so easily, right? After spending a lot of time away from MMORPGs in general, I came to understand some things about myself as a gamer. The first being, I really like RPGs. They're just fun. From the original turn-based games to the RPG subgenres like Dark Souls, I just love progressing a character, leveling them up, becoming stronger, getting better gear, and taking on new challenges. So of course, after playing some Final Fantasy games, or rather a quick dabble into Bravely Default, which is basically a Final Fantasy game, I was ready to give Final Fantasy XIV another shot. And man, am I glad I took that shot. I quickly found the old Big Boy and realized a few things after leveling him for a bit. I was playing the game wrong. Wrong mindset, man. Well, wrong for me at least. You see, I didn't know it at the time, but Final Fantasy XIV is actually an RPG first and an MMO second. Hell, I would even say it's an MMO third. Suffice to say, I didn't really like my character because he was just a big meme. This next part is more of a critique, not just on Final Fantasy XIV, but MMOs in general. Y'all MFers need to step your character creation game up, dog. As someone who loves the big guy characters in RPGs, the Rogadin are let down. I get it. There's only so much that can be done with the game's engine, but the armor just looks so stretched out on the Rogadin. They're oddly wide. I know, this must feel so weird. Someone trash talking the Rogadin and not the Lalafell? What the heck is going on? Look, I like the Rogadin, and I'm glad they exist. There are plenty of Rogadin characters in the game, and maybe if I collect more gear sets, I'll find one that look amazing on them. But that's kind of my point. I need to love my character from the start. And when you take other aspects of Final Fantasy XIV into account, such as the job system, I strongly felt the need to play a race that looks like they could be anything from a stoic healer to a frothing at the mouth berserker. So I re-rolled a Here Highlander, gave him a more appropriate name, and never looked back. Alright, I feel like I need to elaborate here. When I say MMOs need to step their character creation up, I mean in representation. For instance, World of Warcraft recently took some steps towards making more inclusive options when making a human. Even though in a game like WoW, which has a lot of cool races to pick from, if I do want to make a human, being able to make someone who looks more like me is very appreciated. This is more of a problem in games like Final Fantasy XIV. In Final Fantasy XIV, there aren't many races to choose from. In my honest opinion, the Mikote and the Viera are more or less just humans. Humans with bunny ears or cat ears, but mostly human. The Lalafell are just permanently small humans, but the Aura, the Hrothgar, and the Rogadin are actual fantasy races. There are enough differences between them and real-life humans to not be able to see yourself in those races, at least not physically. That being said, it's very hard to make a black man in Final Fantasy XIV. Sure, I can get the skin tone, but it's missing a variety of nose shapes, the variety of lip shapes, and it has a very limited hair choices needed to get a good representation of all sorts of people. By limited, I mean there's like one hair option for Here Highlander and Midlanders that's basically just a buzz cut. There is one curly hair option for Midlanders, but it's locked behind a certain face option. Honestly, it's just something that I'm used to by now. It doesn't frustrate me, it's just disappointing. This time, venturing into the game would be different. I understood more of the mechanics of Final Fantasy at large, and I understood that this game took itself seriously. So I sat down with that kind of mindset of playing through an online RPG versus an MMORPG, and it's been one hell of a journey. First of all, let me just say, if you want to play a huge weapon DPS guy, just pick Lancer/Dragoon. There, that's finished. But I didn't even play a Lancer, I went with Warrior again, now understanding that the role doesn't really matter that much, because really, you just do every job. No need to make a new character when you want to play another job. This is something that would solve so many problems in other MMOs, but I won't really get into that. Let's just say that I really enjoy the job system. It's basically a very long progression system. Every single job in the game is a job that I can progress through, all while not losing any progression on my character. I love it. And the story in this game doesn't let down either. A lot of people talk about how A Realm Reborn isn't very good. I don't know why people phrase it like that. ARR is basically akin to an older Final Fantasy game. It's the bare basics that are needed to establish a large world. There are a lot of characters it introduces and a lot of plot threads it creates. That leaves room for expansion. ARR isn't bad, it's necessary. There may be better ways to do what ARR did, but there's a lot of charm to it too. And the writing only gets better and better with each expansion. The result of their efforts is that I feel a lot of emotions while playing the game. You really come to enjoy the company of the Scions. Each member becomes very endearing as they accompany you throughout the world. You meet a lot of side characters and help resolve a lot of minor stories as you adventure. It makes you feel like you know your place in this world and that you really affect it. They even make a point to reintroduce old characters later on just to see if you remember them. This is something that a lot of MMO players actively ask for in their game, being able to affect the actual world. But of course, all of it's for naught if the games you play can't hold your attention with its story. Final Fantasy attempted solution to this is to simply put the story at the forefront of your gameplay. I believe Yoshi P stated, that he wants Final Fantasy XIV to feel like you're binge watching something similar to Game of Thrones. I'd say he accomplished this quite well. When I log on to Final Fantasy XIV, I know I'm going to be progressing the story. Knowing the villains and the heroes make me want to do whatever raid or dungeon in the game that much more. It's really blissful. I don't feel like my time is ever wasted when I play. I'm always eager to get back in. A big difference in Final Fantasy XIV compared to WoW is the way in which you engage with the game. The way in which the players engage with the game. WoW players, over the years, have made the game all about speed. Speed leveling, speed dungeoning, speed raiding, efficiency, maxing out all of your potential. It's all about going fast, and damn you if you slow me down for even a second. I won't say this is a bad thing inherently. When you're into it, it's cool to see that someone found some kind of method that lets them level to max in only so few hours. But the unfortunate side effect is that it creates a community of players who really hate to slow down. Take the GDC or global cooldown controversy. The fact that they slowed down the GDC and it became a controversy because players don't want to be slowed down like ever says enough. And don't get me wrong, I was there with you when they made the GDC changes. There was more to it, such as too many things being on the GDC and the game just not feeling the same. But even after they removed some abilities from the GDC and tried to make others feel better while remaining on it, most of us just wanted to go back to how it used to be because faster is better. But in Final Fantasy XIV, you're constantly encouraged to take your time. Yeah, binge playing through the MSQ can be fun. You might want to do it to get to the end game. But think of it like this. You're almost always at the end game. Wait, what? If you're not at level 80, then you're not at the end game. That was you talking right now, and you're not wrong. Level 80 content is the end game. But if you just started playing Final Fantasy XIV in 2021, you have missed 3 expansions and several years worth of end game. Yet it's preserved in its level sync system. After you reach level 50, you can do any of the level 50 raids. It's new to you, so what's the difference between stopping and do it now versus waiting until you're level 80? Once you're level 80, you'll just get synced back to level 50 anyway. So why not stop? Slow down, enjoy the sights, enjoy some level 50 content. There's absolutely no rush to get to level 80. The only thing that happens at level 80 is that you'll have no more levels to progress through, and that you'll just end up doing level 50, level 60, level 70, and level 80 content anyway. Because of this, I've completely changed the way I play the game. I played a warrior, but I also stopped and I leveled a bard. I checked out Dark Knight and Machinist too. I went back and leveled a ninja, a samurai, and a monk. I hadn't reached level 80 on any of them. I just tried out what I wanted to try out, see what they felt like to play in dungeons or raids. The result is that I found my favorite job in the ninja. I know what you're thinking. Why do all black people love Naruto so much? Wait, what, you weren't thinking that? Well, I thought it, and I don't know why. I don't have an answer for you. I don't really like Naruto that much, but damn it, ninja is fun. It's really satisfying stopping your usual GDC combos to do some quick-paced mudras that you needed to memorize in order to use effectively. It's not that hard, but putting in the work to learn it feels satisfying. And guess what? Because I did that, because I found what I like, it made me appreciate the other jobs. It's weird how that works. But the ninja's gameplay is very different from, say, the samurai's, who can get some pretty fast gameplay with his Shifu ability. Even though I like the ninja more, I still really like samurai. And I really like all the other jobs too. I don't have to level a dragoon all the way to level 80 before I can experience some in-game style of content on him. After you level a job, your other jobs get EXP bonuses to help catch them up to the level of your current highest job. So leveling a job to level 50 at least is a breeze. I don't know, man. I'm just having a lot of fun. As a casual player, there's no pressure to be the very best. I don't have to manage a bunch of systems and feel like I'm constantly balancing a bunch of spinning plates. I don't have to have this feeling of I'm doing what I don't want to do just so that I can finally do what I want to do. I don't feel like my limited few hours of play is wasted. I'm constantly progressing in something, either the story, which I like, my jobs levels, or collecting cool glamours and mounts. It feels good. I'm thoroughly and efficiently enjoying myself. To that end, I think Final Fantasy XIV does a good job at catering to the needs of many people. You can be a casual and play. You can be a hardcore and play at the hardest rating content and still have fun. You can be really into housing and gardening and play something that's not Animal Crossing and still have fun. Hey, you can really get into gambling and have fun. It's got it all. I'm not here to tell you any games are better than other games. That was never my intention. I just wanted to talk about my experiences as a casual gamer. Often I feel like people don't care about casuals, but that's simply because casuals are too busy playing the game to stop and make their opinions heard. Usually the people that do that either hate what they're playing or they love it so much that they need to shout out in joy to everyone. Or they just care a lot about what they're playing and will critique it to any end. There's nothing wrong with any of that. Therefore, I don't think there's anything wrong with a casual gamer taking some time to casually discuss their experiences with the MMO genre. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you want to support the channel to see more content like this, like the video, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications on future videos. With your support, maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to upgrade myself from the casual status. Cheers.